Hey, everybody, welcome to the Butterfly Project, our Growth Week experience. We're here on day 5 of the second session, Tuesday, and we're going to talk about the 4 pillars of digital revenue growth today: strategy, tactics, analytics, and technology. I'm Mike Lieberman. I'm the CEO and Chief Revenue Scientist at Square 2, and I'm with Lauryn Spence, who's the Manager of Agency Partnerships at BigCommerce. And we're going to walk you through this today. I appreciate everybody attending and enjoy yourself. Again, we'll talk about how we deal with questions and some of the other content options later in the session, but let's go ahead and get started. So here's what I'm going to do today. My part of this session is going to include a brief overview of kind of what's going on in the world. And then we'll talk about each of the individual pillars of a digital revenue growth approach: strategy, tactics, analytics, and technology. And then Lauryn will come in and talk about the e-commerce opportunity that it's available to B2B companies, and how platforms like BigCommerce are helping B2B companies really kind of stretch and add new channels to their business. And since this is the Butterfly Project, I'm going to also do some live examples of a client who's actually going through digital transformation as I talk about what is in this presentation today. So first of all, you may have noticed, and this is a little pre-pandemic, but you may have noticed that sales cycles are extended. People are taking a lot longer to make decisions. Prospects are asking a lot more questions. There's a committee buying and a buying group in almost every situation now. More people are involved in the decision-making process. There's a lot more do nothing too, which to me indicates that people really aren't feeling safe with the options available to them. And when people don't feel safe, they tend to do nothing. So that's probably impacting that pretty significantly. And there's a lot of downward pressure on price. Again, when people don't know the difference between their options, cheapest is always better. So if you've noticed these kinds of activities and these kinds of issues going on in your business, you're certainly not alone. Now, the current environment with the pandemic has just added on top of those issues. We now have spotty access to decision makers. People aren't in their offices and they're not available to be called. So a lot of the old sales motions are much less effective than they were early 2020. There's no events, no trade shows or conferences. Obviously, a lot of companies are dealing with canceled events. And how do we come and supplement the leads that we used to get from events? Everyone's virtual selling. Almost all sales activities have become virtual, requiring retraining and learning new processes of sales teams. It's made the whole sales motion that much more complicated. And it's harder to get prospects' attention. They are more distracted. They're in their home offices. They have kids, they have dogs, they have spouses and partners, and it is just harder to get a prospect's attention these days. And the marketing execution has become increasingly more complex. There's so many more tactics and technologies than ever before. So you package these 5 issues with the 5 issues we were dealing even before the pandemic, and you really have a convergence of a very tough environment for many businesses these days. And we're going to hopefully give you some examples today of how we think you can maybe navigate your way out of this going into 2021. So there's a secret to this. Square 2 has been doing this for a very long time. We've identified that you need these 4 pillars to be present in order to get significant and scalable revenue growth, and transforming your marketing and sales efforts specifically onto a digital platform is also one of the keys here. I love this quote from Jeff Bezos: "There is no alternative to digital transformation. Visionary companies will carve out new strategic options for themselves, and those that don't adapt will fail." You really have to start looking at digital as your go-to-market strategy really today, whether you like it or not. So let's talk about strategy first and what's included in strategy. You probably hear people talk about strategy a lot, but just so we're all on the same page, it's who you're trying to attract, it's what you're saying to them, and what makes you remarkable. What are your expectations around the performance of your digital go-to-market strategy, and are your expectations aligned with your investment? So when we talk to clients about strategy, it is all about getting these questions answered and making sure that everyone in the company is on the same page. And we'll talk about each of them very quickly. Who are you trying to attract? This is probably the most obvious for most people. They know that they need to define some personas. They know they need to go through a targeting exercise. But what they might not know is that you really need to dig into this exercise in a great degree of detail. And it really needs to be laser focused. So Demographic profiling and demographic information in your personas, yes, obvious, but you need psychographic information too. You need to know how these people think. You need to know how they, what makes them feel safe. You really need to know what they're feeling as they go through their interactions with you from a marketing and sales perspective. And the other area I see missing frequently are these online buyer behavioral profiles. You have to know where your prospects are spending their time online. What blogs are they reading? What emails are they signing up for? What websites are they visiting from an industry perspective? What Facebook groups are they in? This online buyer profile is very important from a targeting perspective when you're talking about digital. And last but not least, the bowling pin approach to targeting is something that has been written about a number of times. And a lot of clients tell us, well, where do we start with this targeting exercise? And if you think about a bowling pin, a bowling pins in a bowling alley, you have your first pin. And you want to make that the pin that when you knock that down, it's going to easily knock down pin 2 and 3. And when pin 2 and 3 get knocked down, it's going to easily knock down pin 3, 4, and 5. And what does that mean practically? It means if you're going to target with your lead pin VPs of marketing at biotech companies, you know that your second pin might be VP of marketing at pharmaceutical companies. So it's a very closely related second target, one that your stories from your first targeting exercise can be leveraged in your targeting exercise with your second pin. In your third pin, you might be looking at VPs of sales at biotech companies. So again, it's a different target, but a very close relation to that first target that you selected. So you have to really think about how you go to market in this way. Shotgun approach does not work anymore. One-to-many marketing is highly inefficient and much less effective than it's ever been before. And if you're thinking you're going to be everything to everyone, then I'm going to tell you that you probably won't be anything to anyone. You really have to narrow your focus down and come to that target audience with a very, very compelling story. We're going to talk about that next. You got to have a story, right? Where these people are making that you're going after are making emotional purchase decisions. And if you don't have a story to tell them, and if you don't have a story that's disruptive and emotional and compelling, you're not going to get their attention. If you want to look at your website as an example, you literally have 10 seconds to get someone's attention when they land on your homepage. That's data published by Google and Microsoft. You have 10 seconds is a extremely small window. If your story on your homepage is not disruptive, it won't grab them. If it's not emotional, it won't pull them in. If it's not compelling, it won't require them to look around your site and get to know your business and your products and services better. So you really, really, really have to come up with something that is very well-defined, well-articulated, and grabs the people that you're trying to attract, grabs their attention very effectively. Now, this is the picture of a purple cow. This is Seth Godin's purple cow. And if you know anything about marketing and Seth Godin, he's an amazing marketing thought leader who introduces to the idea of being remarkable. I could not agree more with the approach here. Your business has to be a purple cow. If you're a brown cow, you're going to basically disappear into the scenery. You know, if we blew off this meeting and we jumped in my car and we went for a ride, the brown cows would easily be ignorable. No one would pay any attention to the brown cows as we're driving through the wilderness. But if we saw a purple cow, the first thing we're going to do is stop the car. We're going to get out. We're going to take pictures. We're going to make phone calls. We're going to post on social media. We're going to tell everybody about this purple cow. And that's going to drive more attention and more media and more interested people to come and see the purple cow. And when you think about it, the story here related to our other slide is the cow is purple. It's a very simple story that's easy to remember and easy to share, as opposed to if we start talking about how old the cow is, how much the cow weighs, what kind of cow is. No one cares about those details of the cow. They only care that it's purple. And you really have to look for those elements in your business as well and feature them in your marketing and in your sales so that people can remember those stories and tell those stories and share those stories and be able to connect with those stories very efficiently. So let's create a great story and let's make it so interesting as the story around the purple cow, and your business is going to be in a much better position to start that digital transformation process we're talking about today. So now we're going to get a little more practical. That's a little more, that's very marketing. It's very kind of like, you know, creative and soft. But I want part of the strategy to also be numbers based and very logical. So I see this very frequently. Clients are thinking about what's possible and they're looking at a very low investment and they have a very aggressive set of objectives. And you really have to be clear about what you're expecting from your effort in terms of digital transformation, both on the marketing, sales, and customer service side. You really have to understand what's reasonable. If you're currently getting 100 visitors to your website and no leads, it's highly unlikely that in a month you'll be getting 10,000 visitors to your website and 1,000 leads. It's just not likely to happen like that. So you really have to understand from the experts primarily what's possible, how long is it going to take, how much investment is required to get you there. So if you have 100 people to your website and no leads, and your goal is 10,000 visitors and 1,000 leads, that is perfectly fine. But understand that that's going to require a major investment and will take many months to drive that kind of lift. And if you're okay with that, you have an alignment between expectations and investment. And if that is not okay with you, then let's reset your objectives. Instead of going from 100 to 10,000 visitors, let's go from 100 to 1,000 visitors. And instead of going from 100 leads, 100 visitors and 0 leads, let's go from 100 visitors to 1,000 visitors and 10 leads, right? Let's be realistic in our expectations. And let's also look at what resources are required to make those moves. Let's agree on those business outcomes. And let's talk about a plan B, because in reality, as you see in the little squiggly line there, very rarely do engagements go from A to B in a straight line. Life just doesn't work like that, as we've all been clearly exposed to last year and going into this year. You're going to get curveballs. Things are not going to work as planned. You need a plan B, and you need to be ready to deal with those issues as they present themselves. So this is very important from a strategy perspective as you start to think about what you're going to accomplish at your company. Now, you know, one of the benefits of this butterfly project is we wanted to talk about our butterfly. We wanted to give you an example of a real client who's going through digital transformation right now and how some of these issues we've been talking about relate to them. So I'm going to do that in this session. The other sessions that are going on later this week are going to do it in a similar way. So I want to talk about Teal & Team. They're a design and procurement service firm. They specialize in interior design, and they also help you buy all the cool stuff that make the spaces look amazing. So they have a nice package of design and procurement services that they provide. When we started with their digital transformation, they had no real targeting. They kind of worked with whoever presented themselves. They knew more or less who they wanted to do business with, but they didn't have a really solid persona and profile built. They didn't have the bowling pin plan around how to go after multiple target markets. And after focusing them, we really decided that we were going to go after clubs and communities with large common spaces. These are the kinds of projects that they really excel at. These are the kinds of projects where they can really dig into both the design and the procurement service piece of this. So this is their lead pin. And they have a couple of 2, 3, and 4, and 5 pin as well. But we want to really wanted to really focus their initial push on these particular types of prospects for them. Their message and their story prior to their transformation was design matters, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's not really exactly their story. It's all about how you finish, which stretches into their service experiences. It stretches into their process about how they work with clients. And obviously the finish is really what they excel at, that design and procurement service that make these common spaces and these big community rooms look amazing for their members and their residents and the people that are spending a lot of time in that space. When we talked to them, they didn't have a lot of differentiation. So there really wasn't an ability to separate them from people who provide similar services. And after working with us, we're really leaning into process and procurement services. They have a very specialized process around the design and working with their clients. And the procurement services that they provide are relatively unique. So that combination makes for a really interesting story. When we met them, they had no budget or expectations around leads. They only knew they wanted to grow. And by working with us and defining their budget, we agreed that 10 sales opportunities per quarter and 2 new clients per quarter was what they wanted to look at and what their expectations were. And we all felt that was extremely reasonable. So this is a really good example of how that transformation around the strategy piece of it took place for Teal & Team. So part 2 are the tactics. Now, I'm going to spend less time on the tactics because I think these are a lot more obvious to most of us. I don't have to talk about email marketing or your website in an incredible amount of detail. But the piece that's interesting about the tactics for us is the selection process that enable this digital transformation is very important. The orchestration of the tactics, the execution of the tactics, and the optimization are more important than the actual tactics you use. So that'll be the theme as I go through a couple of these slides. So what you're looking at here is the Cyclonic buyer journey, which if you were in the session yesterday, you got a lot of information about the Cyclonic buyer journey. If you want more information about that, check out yesterday's session. It's all about the Cyclonic buyer journey. But what we've done here is mapped a host of tactics to each of the stages in the buyer journey. So you can more or less see what tactics apply at which stages in the buyer journey. Many of them overlap. And this might help you decide which tactics you want to execute depending on what parts of the buyer journey you're focusing on. It's almost impossible to do all of these things all at once. So prioritization becomes very important. Selection becomes very important. Orchestration is also key. As you see here, I often look at the campaigns and the work we do with clients like an orchestra. And if it's not orchestrated properly, if the violin section and the flute section and the horn section and the percussion section are not in perfect alignment, you don't get a beautiful symphony. If everything is orchestrated perfectly, you really get beautiful music. And the same thing applies in marketing. If your stuff is working together well, you're going to exceed expectations and have a high-performing program. If it's not, you're going to experience underperformance and you're going to wonder why your marketing and your sales might not be working as well as expected. It usually points to a lack of solid orchestration. Campaign planning and execution is also important. So what we're providing today is our content offer as part of the Butterfly Project is the 2021 Campaign Planning Guide. I took a snapshot of it here, but you can use a tool like this to know very clearly what stages of the buyer journey you're targeting, to know exactly what personas are going to be included in the campaign, to talk about the timing, to know what the company's story is and how that story trickles down to a campaign story, to know what offers you're promoting and how they're aligned to the buyer journey. What you offer people who are early in the buyer journey is going to be different than what you offer people who are later in the buyer journey. You have to think that through as you're putting a campaign together. And then you have to select the campaign tactics that are best appropriate for your particular campaign. But you're going to also go on to do some optimization planning. You're going to want to come up with a plan B, and you're going to want to identify them in your campaign plan. If this doesn't go as expected, what buttons can I push? What levers can I adjust to improve the performance of our campaign? What campaign metrics are we expected? What campaign performance and business outcomes are defined? And what are the rhythms and timing around the optimization as planned? When am I going to jump in and consider my plan B? How long do I want to give my initial campaign to run before I decide it needs some additional help? All of these questions can be asked and answered and thought through with a campaign planning tool like the one we're offering as part of the Butterfly Project and the one that I'm showing a snapshot of here. And then alignment is incredibly important too. Marketing, sales, and service have to all be on the same page. If sales is not understanding what marketing is doing, if marketing is not understanding the story sales is saying, if service provides a completely different experience than marketing and sales, your prospects and your customers are going to get an odd experience with your business, and you're not going to be able to accelerate this digital transformation like we're talking about. So you really need specifically these three parts of your business to be completely aligned about digital transformation and revenue growth, but you probably need the entire organization aligned as well, from the CEO all the way down to the lowest frontline team member. And now let's look at our butterfly here. So there's a lot of relevant stories here in terms of what we did with Teal and team and their transformation. So they didn't have any campaigns. They only did selected marketing tactics from time to time. And I see this very frequently. Oh, we'll send an email out next month. We haven't sent one in a couple of months. That kind of approach is just not going to work anymore. They needed inbound marketing campaigns, they needed demand generation campaigns, and they needed ongoing campaign optimization. So with some planning exercise and some forethought and strategy and thinking, we were able to bring people to them. We were able to take their message out to the right people, and we were able to put the appropriate optimization into their transformation activities. There were no rhythms around marketing campaign planning. So again, like they just did a campaign when they felt like they needed to. And after looking at what worked best for them, monthly rhythms around these marketing campaigns made the most sense. So now they're running a monthly marketing campaign to drive visitors to their website, convert them, nurture them, and move them through the buyer journey and into their sales process. Speaking of sales process, they didn't really have one. When someone presented themselves to them, they said, great, how can we help you? And they did the best they could to kind of work them through a series of steps to hopefully get them to say yes. And again, that's not going to work anymore. Now they have a formal sales process. It's documented, it's visual, and it's measurable. And the handful of people that do sales at Teal and Team understand what that is, and they understand how to execute it. And we're also able to track it and measure it so we can optimize it. That's a really important point. And lastly, they had very happy, satisfied clients, but there was no mechanism for those clients to tell that story. Today, they have a client advocacy program and a referral program and client video assets. So not only are they telling the story of Teal and Team, but their clients are telling their story. And that's actually the best way to go about transforming your business, is trying to get your clients to tell your story and creating the assets that are digital that basically allow them to do that in a very efficient and highly effective way. So the third of our platform here, the third pillar in our platform, is analytics. We really have to measure this digital transformation and revenue growth in order to see what's working. And I like to say what gets measured gets done. I think Peter Drucker originally said that, but if you're not measuring it, you're just basically practicing. You're just not really doing it in the right way. So we have to look at analytics. And what you're looking at here is what we call a revenue cycle. It allows you to document your current performance and exactly how prospects and visitors and new contacts are flowing through your marketing cycle, and how once those become sales qualified leads, they're flowing through your sales process and eventually converting into customers. And what we've done is created a desired level of performance. So we actually know what the goal line is. We know exactly how many people we need to get to the website. We know exactly what our conversion rate is, how many marketing qualified leads we need to get a certain amount of sales qualified leads, to get a certain amount of sales opportunities, to submit our proposals and close them. So we get the exact amount of new customers and the exact amount of new revenue we need every single month. It's really a much more scientific approach to thinking through how people move from visitor to new customer, right? And we can now look at this delta and say, hey, we want to improve our close rate by 10%. What are we going to do about that? We want to increase our site conversion rate from 2% to 2.5%. What are we going to do about that? We need 1,000 more visitors a month. What are we going to do about that? So this clearly identifies where marketing, sales, and service execution can be effective to drive that revenue growth that you're looking for. Now, like I said, the cyclonic buyer journey is a big part of our methodology. You heard more about this in yesterday's session, but this has a direct impact on the analytics that we're talking about. Instead of looking at analytics in a very tactical perspective like we like to do, how's the website doing? How's our email marketing doing? How's our social media doing? How are we doing with search? My suggestion to you guys today is to consider looking at the stage analytics. You know, how are our awareness marketing campaigns performing? How are our educational stage campaigns performing? And I have a couple of examples here for you. This is an awareness stage dashboard. So here I'm looking at site visitors, which is an indication of how much people are aware of this particular client and coming to the site. What's the conversion rate? How much of those are organic? How many of that is social media? So I've combined a bunch of tactical data together to see how we're doing from an awareness perspective. Here's another example. This is an education stage dashboard. So I'm looking at the performance of educational assets, video, content, webinars. I'm looking at landing page conversion rate. So I've bundled a bunch of educational stage metrics together in a dashboard so I can see how my aggregate campaigns are working around this particular stage. And when you start looking at your marketing and sales and service from that perspective, you start to get some different insights. And these dashboards and analytics and reports is really not the end game. The end game here, folks, is insights. You need to be able to look at this data and say, hey, this doesn't look like it's doing as best as I thought it would. And here are some of the things I think I can do to make it work better. Those insights are critical, and those insights are the nuggets that you're looking for whenever we talk about analytics and data. So keeping on our theme here with our butterfly, Teal and team, they had no metrics or data around the performance of marketing or sales. So we set up marketing and sales dashboards for them so they could get the data and pull the insights out of that. They had no rhythms around marketing campaigns or sales performance. So now we're looking at weekly rhythms in terms of campaign execution and monthly rhythms around sales performance. You want to make sure that you're not looking too frequently at things that you can't impact, and looking at the appropriate times in a month or a week around things that you can impact. If I'm looking at campaigns weekly, I can make changes weekly. I'm probably not going to change the sales process more than once a month. So there's not a lot of cause to look at sales performance maybe more than monthly. Plus, you have salespeople who are very close to their sales performance as well, and they're going to be doing some reporting along the way too. No access to data related to revenue performance, and now they have real-time access to live marketing and sales data. So again, they're much closer to the data, and they're much closer to the performance of their program. Last but not least, we need technology. Revenue generation and growth at scale is just too complicated to do it without technology. So you have to start considering, what tools can I use to make this better? Now, this is the current marketing technology landscape. And if it looks unbelievably confusing and blurry and completely unmanageable, you're probably right. There are currently over 8,000 tools that are being considered from a marketing and sales and service perspective. So we have to find a way to synthesize this down a bit. And guess what? We used our Cyclonic buyer journey to try to do that and try to put some of the better partners and some of the better tools and some of the better software into its various columns related to the Cyclonic buyer journey and how people interact with your company. And you'll notice at the bottom, there's some platform tools that kind of work across the entire spectrum. HubSpot, one of them. And then again, it's going to be like, what flavor of ice cream do you like? Like, these are partners that we have worked with and have some level of experience with. But again, different combinations are going to work differently for different businesses. But starting to think about it based on the stages of the buyer journey might help you take that list of 8,000 and narrow it down into something that's a bit more manageable. And then also, if you're going to prioritize at the front end of the buyer journey, you know that you have a set of tools that you're going to look at and invest in to really focus on pre-awareness and awareness and education. If you're going to focus on decision-making and doing a better job with sales, you have a package of tools and a tech stack that you can look at that might help your sales execution improve. And last but not least, our Butterfly went through a very similar experience. They had no marketing automation, analytics, or campaign execution software. They're currently using HubSpot's Marketing Hub. They had no CRM or sales software. They're currently using HubSpot's Sales Hub. And their website is continuing on WordPress, which is it's a fine free platform, but it does offer limited visibility into performance, limited ability to make changes and optimize. And I think as Teal and team's digital transformation continues, they will eventually decide to move onto the HubSpot CMS and have full access to everything they need from a digital transformation tech stack. Now, I know that was a lot, and I tend to go through stuff quickly, but we're excited about the amount of content we have. So if you guys have questions, I will be able to promote our office hours session at the end of our recording today. And with that, I want to introduce you to Lauryn from BigCommerce. There's been a major trend that we've seen over the past year or so, and that's e-commerce for B2B companies. And BigCommerce is right in the middle of that with an amazing platform for B2B companies. So I'm going to let Lauryn talk about this pretty significant trend that we're seeing with clients about not necessarily trying to replace distributors or direct sales, but adding a new e-commerce channel to supplement those sales channels and really driving significant revenue growth. So Lauryn, with that, I'm going to stop sharing and allow you to share your presentation.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mike. That was great to hear and really get a lot of actionable insight and hear the analogy around the butterfly as well too. Super helpful. So that was exciting to see. Can you see my screen all right?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Perfect. So my name is Lauryn Spence. I'm the manager of agency partnerships here with BigCommerce. Been here about 6 years now. Today, what I'm going to be getting into is around future-proofing your business and really, what the considerations are going to be if you're going to be adding an e-commerce channel, which is really important for B2B businesses to be thinking about right now. Also for direct consumer businesses as well. And one of the fundamental building blocks about that is ensuring you have the right platform to do so. So before kind of getting into the meat and potatoes, I wanted to introduce myself a little bit more deeply and establish some credibility here. So I'm a native Texan, born and raised here in Austin. So you will hear the occasional y'all throughout today's presentation. And I have an entrepreneurial background myself. I used to run my own direct consumer business, e-commerce store online for a few years. And then, by day, I manage agency partnerships. I'm a mother of a 1-year-old. And before the world shut down a year ago, I was an avid traveler, as you see in this picture here. Mike, to take a little shift here in terms of analogies, I know you have the butterfly one. I'd like to kind of talk about a house analogy to really set the stage before getting into everything. So, I've had the pleasure of working with brands of all walks of life, whether it's a, digitally native startup, a more established company of the likes of Skull Candy, Paul Mitchell, health industrial company, you name it, right? And what we've always come back to when we're looking at e-commerce considerations or even looking at getting into other channels for their business is thinking about the business itself like a house, but the foundations or bones of the house as e-commerce platform. And let's imagine you as the owner or e-commerce manager or the realtor and you're trying to sell this house. So you kind of think about what those activities are. You probably hire someone to come in for staging and make it look nice. So think of that as UI, UX, and optimization testing there. You'll probably list the house on third-party marketplaces to get more visibility. So think of that as the likes of Walmart, Amazon, eBay, etc. Then you're going to want to make sure you get enough traffic, right, and get that audience in to really view the house, imagine themselves living in it. You're going to hope they go and tell their friends, right? So think of that as social marketing and affiliate marketing. And then you'll have some other things. Is the house flexible, customizable if I want to break down a wall? Can I add new apps and features, right? So think that maybe like a pool. Is it safe to raise my children? Is the house up to code? So think of that, as like PCI compliance, for example, in the e-com world. So all that to say, you can have the most gorgeous house in the world, but if you don't have the fundamentals right, or the bones right, you're gonna have a really hard time selling that house. So that's what I'm really getting into is, again, if you want to make sure you're future-proofing your business for unforeseen events, let's say an earthquake or COVID, you want to make sure that you are working with a tech stack that's allowing you to adapt the way consumers are buying and get into more, get into other channels more effectively. So I'll leave this analogy at the door now so you can kind of get where I'm going with it, but I'll get into some considerations on why you might need to consider another channel. So going through these one by one, sales activity being significantly curtailed by COVID-19 due to in-person restrictions. Obviously, everyone right now is looking for anyone with curbside options or strictly getting online sales delivered to their house. So probably anyone with a physical storefront or doing any type of in-person B2B sales is definitely impacted by this. Obviously, major trade shows, all that's canceled. If you use that as a source of lead flow, certainly that's probably dampened things for you. Increases in emails from customers wanting to place orders. So, are you finding yourself not having an efficient means for, dealing with an influx of purchase orders coming in? Or are you constantly looking for ways to automate or kind of make your customers more sufficient in that regard to do purchase orders on their own? Maybe some distributors or VARs are becoming unreliable, and perhaps uncertainty about the future effectiveness of direct sales channels in your business. So if you've experienced any of these things, these are probably signs that you need to consider another e-commerce channel. And this is important now more than ever, especially for your website, because it's your top sales representative. Think about if you have a rep, right, that's selling products or managing customer accounts, or even in a physical storefront, and they were only converting 1 to 3% of your leads. You probably would either invest in training that person or getting someone else to do the job. So same goes for your website or the channel that you're looking to sell on, right? You probably wouldn't accept that. You'd want to make sure that the website you're using or the channel you're using is allowing you to focus on optimizing performance, merchandising. You want to make sure that you can focus on innovation. and ultimately ensure that your tech stack is going to support any of the changes that are coming with how consumers are buying. What we do know is that consumers are demanding experiential commerce, whether you're, Gen Z or millennial or Gen X or boomer, across all those different cohorts, they're all expecting experiential commerce. What we do know with COVID, you'll want to make sure that if you're going, direct consumer on another channel or an e-com site, you'll want to consider, how they're thinking of buying. A recent report by CNBC was looking at how, the psychology of buyers now due to COVID, and we know 3 things are true. They want to feel, across all these generations, they want to feel some autonomy, right? Like they're in control of their actions. They want to feel relatedness with brands, right? So the marketing and imagery on your site needs to be relatable to them and the at-home audience right now. And they want to feel competent. They want to feel like they're making a good deal or they're getting a good deal when compared to, say, some competitors that you might be selling against. Omnichannel is key. So this is essentially, the heart of the whole presentation, right? Opening up another e-commerce channel. Gone are the days of someone essentially just having one way to purchase from you. The way people are buying and interacting with brands is changing every day, right? They're wanting to purchase and interact through content, email, social media, marketplaces, physical, in-store, retail, B2B, right? So you want to make sure that whatever software or platform and tech stack that you're working with is going to allow you to effectively get into these new channels, test and learn, as well as create efficiencies and do so in a cost-effective manner and really manage everything in one central place for you. Last but not least, consumers are demanding beautiful sites, high engagement with high personalization. This really comes to fleeting brand relationships and brand loyalty. Mike talked about the purple cow, right? Everyone wants to be wowed and remember. So, as an example, Skull Candy here, they also do B2B online as well as direct to consumer. No matter what users interacting with them, depending on who the buyer is, they do a great job of personalizing what they're going to see and what products they're going to see based on that user profile. So kind of to talk a little bit more futuristically, I'm showing you guys an example of a father and son that are more than likely ordering groceries from the refrigerator in the future. Now I show this because, every industry and how we buy from them is changing today, right? A year or 2 ago, I was not using Instacart, right, and curbside pickup for my groceries every week. And now it's just going to be how I do things. Even when things open back up, I never want to go to the store anymore, right? I'm going to always want to do this. So you want to ensure that you're working with something that's going to allow you to adapt to those changes, right? This is probably not as applicable just to a standard, e-commerce business. So I'll give you an example. It's a little bit more relatable. Instagram. Who would have thought 5 years ago that this would be a major shopping channel, right? Versus just sharing pictures and connecting with friends. About 70% of all consumers today online are doing their product research on Instagram before they even go to Amazon. So, you have to ask yourself, are you working with a platform or are you considering a platform that's going to allow you to easily list products on other channels, whether it be social or other marketplaces, and do so efficiently? So that's what I'm going to be getting in here to today. If anyone's a fan of The Clash, should I stay or should I go now? Whether you're already on an existing platform or considering another platform to open up another e-commerce channel, I'm going to talk about 4 key technology trends that are really changing the way consumers are buying, changing the way marketers and e-commerce managers are operating their business. And if you're responding, negatively to any of these 4 things, it might be time to rethink the e-commerce platform. So first and foremost, does the technology still work for you? This is the table stakes stuff, right? So are you working with a platform that has the nuts and bolts and the features you need to sell effectively? But also some of the other things that are very fundamental. Is it stable and reliable? This is really important now because if you look at total percentage of online sales between like 2000 and 2020, that jumped from 1 to 15% of total spend going online. In just the last 6 months, or I guess now 6 to 8 months, that's jumped up and beyond 30%, right? So you want to make sure that you're working with a platform that can handle a huge uptick in massive traffic, can handle this influx of online shoppers that really haven't been there before, that are now only going to be shopping online, and ensure that once you have a stable platform, is it flexible enough to allow you to test and learn new products? Flexible catalog structure. Is there a curated app ecosystem to let you test and learn new things? Or even an underrated point, is there a skill shortage, right, with the technology that you're looking to use? Or are you working with something that's a little bit antiquated and proprietary and only a few people know how to use it, right? So it's something that you'll want to consider if the technology is even working for you. Number two, is your total cost of ownership upside down? So, for any folks out there that find themselves constantly paying for unforeseen upgrades, bugs, fixes, any type of maintenance and security patches, and not really leaving enough funds to invest in top level revenue, right? And getting a more brand awareness, marketing, and all the activities that Mike was laying out before, then that's certainly a problem. And if you are living that way, you certainly don't have to. So what we want to do is look at how you're using your IT resources, right? Their time and your money, and ask yourself, am I investing in growth, or am I just investing in keeping the lights on with a tech stack? So you'll want to make sure that you're investing in the former. Number three, are you able to optimize marketing spend and earn marketing to fuel your growth? This one is arguably one of the most important things, because, brands with an audience are the ones that are going to separate themselves as winners and the losers. If you look at any disruptive brand out there, say, Harry's or the Dollar Shave Clubs of the world, in one night with just a YouTube video, they could build an audience that just blew Gillette out of the water, right? And to combat that, Gillette and a number of other Procter & Gamble brands actually replatformed and moved to BigCommerce to ensure that, for the marketing and audience building that they're going to invest in, they want to work with a platform that's going to allow them to easily convert those shoppers if they're going to spend all that time and money in marketing. So what we mean is, is the store mobile friendly? Is it lightning fast, right? SEO optimized, because people are impatient, as Mike mentioned, when they're shopping. Are there ways for you to optimize your customer lifetime value, right? Is it easy for you to enable subscriptions? Are you focused on the aesthetics of the site and your conversion rate optimization, right? Or one-click payment options. So these are all really important. If you're going to invest in all that marketing, once they get to your site, can you actually convert and hang on to that audience? And last but not least, are you able to securely scale your business? So this goes for all the not so sexy acronyms out there, right? The things you don't really think about when you got into the business that you're in today. Things like PCI compliance, DDoS mitigation, GDPR compliance, all the things that are constantly changing in terms of standards on a daily basis, right? So you want to make sure, are you working with a platform that's handling these things for you? That's allowing you to get into other channels or markets or countries in a secure way, keeping privacy and payment considerations in full view. And are you working with an affordable ecosystem that can really support you through while you're trying to scale your business? So this one's really important in making sure that you're working with a platform that's handling these things and you're not left carrying the bag. What you will need to consider is the broad spectrum of technology and e-commerce platforms out there. So on one end of the spectrum, you've got your classic open source on-prem systems. Think of these as like Magento, right? Fully customizable, sky's the limit with what you can do with these, right? However, we know with great power comes responsibility, with the total cost of ownership being upside down. Security is always a headache. You're not using your IT resources effectively, more than likely, and not leaving a whole lot of room for investment in marketing. And they're just, quite frankly, hard to manage, right? That's why people look to cloud-based or SaaS systems. Very marketer friendly, very easy to use, highly performant, always updated with new features. But the trade-off being that they're not very customizable, right? Especially if you want to do both B2B and B2C within one site, or have an omni-channel approach. It's really hard to do that with a cookie cutter SaaS platform, like say a Shopify. So there's no silver bullet to commerce, but I do like to think BigCommerce comes pretty close, and that we give clients and partners the best of both worlds between on-prem and SaaS. So a commerce platform with flexibility, without compromise, with a very low total cost of ownership, and very easy to use. So if you're looking at a technology platform, you're going to want to make sure to go with an open SaaS platform. They're fast, flexible, omni-channel friendly, very experience centric, very cost effective. And they also take a more best-in-class ecosystem approach. What I mean by that is, instead of trying to own a bunch of ancillary parts of your tech stack, say like the ERP, payments platform or CMS and all these things that say Shopify, Adobe, and Salesforce are doing, platform like BigCommerce is just best in breed in commerce and allows you to choose best of breed platforms, right? Because the technology you're using today might not be what you want to use tomorrow. So it's good to work with a flexible platform that has easy integrations to just about anything that you'd like to utilize. And here's a couple of clients we've gotten it right for across a variety of industries. Again, whether you're traditional B2B or direct consumer with automotive, food and beverage, fashion apparel, industrial, medical, sports and outdoors, you name it. Case studies are on the website if you ever want to go check them out. One case study I'll get into is Skull Candy, since they do both B2B and B2C within one store with BigCommerce. They were previously on Salesforce Commerce Cloud, and the reason they were looking to leave is they actually wanted to add other channels. They really wanted to get into social selling as well as bring their B2B operations online. So they looked at BigCommerce, Shopify Plus, and Magento, ultimately went with us because they like the open SaaS way, more flexibility, more tools for merchandising, and more cost effective. And since the launch, they've seen a 25% improvement in their add to cart and 15% improvement in conversion as well. And that actually goes for both B2B and B2C. So someone that really was able to adapt, work with a more nimble technology. And today, if you go to their site, they've done a really good job of adapting their branding for an at-home audience. So you want to make sure you're doing that as well. So I'll leave you with these 4 things as a quick recap. Essentially, when you're looking on the broad technology spectrum, what platforms to choose if you're going to open up another channel or if you're going to re-platform, you want to first and foremost make sure, is it customizable and extensible, right? Can you get the look and feel you want, the features you need? Do you have a robust, app ecosystem to choose from? That sort of thing. Number 2, is it secure and reliable, right? Once you have your site built, do you have all the nuts and bolts in place to make sure your payment considerations are handled, PCI compliance, DDoS protection, all that stuff, right? And making sure that you have reliable uptime, especially during the holiday season. Third, making sure that you're able to focus on attracting and converting, right? If you're going to be focusing on, building that audience and getting all that earned marketing, can you convert them, right? And last but not least, does it work for your bottom line? Does it have a low total cost of ownership? So that's certainly very important. So short and sweet. Sorry, I talked really fast as well, Mike, through there. But if anyone would like to connect, I've left my contact info here on the screen. Really excited for the opportunity to get to present. Square 2 Marketing is one of our best partners here at BigCommerce. So really thankful for that today. And thank you so much, Mike.
No problem, Lauren. Thank you. Can you just hit the next slide?
Oh, absolutely.
No problem. Really great presentation. I really appreciate you guys wanting to be part of this with us. And it was such a great story around the importance of e-commerce, especially for B2B businesses. But look, regardless of what happens this year with COVID, I just don't think business is going back to what it used to be. And companies really have to start looking at new channels as a way to get customers the kind of buying experience they're looking for. So thank you for an awesome presentation. If you guys are watching this today on Tuesday, January 12th, then this afternoon at 4 o'clock, we're going to have an office hours. I know that's a super long link, but you're also going to get an email today with the link to the office hours live session. So if you want to talk more about this with me, Lauren's not going to be able to join us, but we're going to have Gabe, our interactive director, on during office hours. So if you want to talk about anything that I talked about or Lauren talked about, with us live this afternoon, you'll be able to do that. We are also going to record that session, so you'll be able to get access to that too if you can't make it. And don't forget to join us tomorrow for session 3, marketing transformation using digital to generate more leads. That's what we have planned for you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much for attending. Lauren, thanks so much for doing your part of the presentation. And I hope everyone has a really great day and a really awesome 2021. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.